Now, before we get going, a slight adjustment in plans due to reasons. We're still going to be doing an episode for each disc, but each episode will consist of a number of different videos, one for each year. Basically, when you're playing with someone else's toys, they get to make the rules. So you'll see a number of different videos for each disc, one per year. And then I'll make a playlist for each episode so you can watch one disc at a time and do it that way. For this first set for disc one, this video's up now, and the next couple will be dropping mostly over the next day, and then the final part will probably be up Sunday morning. So this part, you'll see the opening credits, and then the last part, you'll see the closing credits, and that'll be the same for all the other discs that we'll do down the line. Once we get to, like, starting with disc 2, basically 1 year will drop at a time, and then once I'm done with it, I'll make a playlist and we'll go from there. And then eventually there'll be one big playlist for all the Tom and Jerry, one for the Golden Age Anthology, get it right, and then one for the entire theatrical Tom and Jerry. So we'll go from there. Sometimes you just got to make these adjustments on the fly. I just had to make sure you guys could actually see this. So this is what we got to do. Hi, this is John Hartram. Welcome to episode 38 and the delayed season 3 of Left Turn at Albuquerque, where we move on to tackle a new series, the theatrical cartoons of Tom and Jerry. We'll be starting out by going over the brand new Golden Age Anthology, 1940 through 1958. We'll do a disc and episode. This one will cover through 1945. Let's get to it. So this was a very happy occurrence. I'd mentioned for quite a while that once we'd finish up the Looney Tunes collections, we'd move on to Tom and Jerry. I was expecting to do a bit of a cobble job, taking the Golden Collection Volume 1 and then piecing it together from what was, everything else on the Spotlight collections, as piecemeal as that is. And then get the CinemaScope collection for Christmas, and that'll take care of those on Blu-ray. And, oh, by the way, I'd gotten a hold of the 2 missing ones. Well, thanks to Warner Archives, all that went out the window, and things were made a lot easier with the release of the Golden Age Anthology, which takes care of the entire Hanna-Barbera era from 1940 to 1958. We'll be dealing with a whole new cast of characters, both on screen and behind. Not only will we talk about Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera, we'll get to know the names Fred Quimby, Scott Bradley, the quartet of Ray Patterson, Irv Spence, Ken Muse, and Ed Barge. Plus, later on, we'll see some names we've dealt with before. We'll also get to know the word Metrocolor and what that means in regards to this part of the Tom and Jerry catalog. Let me do a quick brief on that. There have been several fires in film and tape vaults over the years which unfortunately have wiped things out. A 1965 fire in the MGM vaults likely destroyed the last known copy of the Lon Chaney film London After Midnight, now listed as among the holy grails of silent film. A 1978 fire at the George Eastman Lab destroyed many original Tom and Jerry negatives, leaving them with safety copies done in their own Metrocolor process instead of Technicolor. And it shows. So there are things that may not look good, but that's all they have left. In other cases, they could have done better. We'll figure out which is which. As far as our usual procedure, most of that will be the same. Release dates, plots, things of special interest. Something that will save time is the directors will be the same on every one of these, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera. They wrote a lot of these as well, so if there's another writer involved, I'll go ahead and mention them. If I don't, assume it's Bill and Joe. I'll also be adding in a few bonus tunes and other things as well, only some of which are actually on this set. Now, since we'll still be keeping track of any new Looney Tunes releases, particularly Collector's Vault Volume 2, We're going to try to get all 5 of these episodes done by the end of March or early April. So then that'll give us a nice clean break, get to the end of the Hanna-Barbera era, and then do Collector's Vault, and then move on to the rest of the theatricals. I'll also include a link to Thad K's reviews of the set. They are informative as always, and definitely worth your time to take a look, after you've watched this, of course. Now, before we get into the cartoons, let's go over our 2 auteurs. First, William Hanna was born on July 14th, 1910, in the New Mexico Territory at the time. It didn't become a state until a year and a half later. After moving around the West Coast a bit, his family settled into Southern California. His drawing talent was noticed while working at Pacific Title and Art, run by a gentleman by the name of Leon Schlesinger. From there, he joined Hugh Harman and Rudolph Ising as they began to create cartoons for Warner Brothers. Hanna not only worked on the art, but also did some songwriting there as well. In 1933, the duo chose to move to MGM, and Hanna went with them. In some alternate reality, Bill stays with Schlesinger and with Frizz begins to direct his own cartoons, thereby not necessitating the hiring of one Fred Avery. You see where this could go. Hanna did begin directing cartoons in 1936. When MGM decided to create their own studio, they hired Bill almost immediately. This was the time they also hired Freeling away from Warner's and had the duo make Captain and the Kids cartoons. As we've spoken about in earlier episodes, this did not end well. Frizz ran back to Warner's when his contract was up, and Hanna was demoted back to working on story. It was at that point he ended up at a desk with a new guy hired away from Terrytoons named Joseph Barbera. Joe Barbera was born on March 24th, 1911 in New York to Italian immigrant parents. He also began to develop an interest in drawing and drew some cartoons for a local magazine. He began to work in the industry first at Fleischer Studios, pre-Popeye, and then at Van Buren Studios. Now it's here where something interesting took place. One of Van Buren's products was a series about a couple of guys named Tom and Jerry. The story has gone over the years that Joe worked on that series, and it later inspired his future duo. However, some recent research may have found he didn't really work on this series, or best, maybe did just one. But in any case, the connection is there. When Van Buren closed in 1936, he stayed on at its replacement, created by one of that studio's founders, Paul Terry. Barbera stayed with Terrytoons for a year or so when MGM reached out with a promise of a better deal, so Joe made the move to California. From there, he ended up at the desk next to Bill Hanna. The two got to talking and found out they worked well together. In 1939, they began working on a cartoon revolving around a cat and a mouse. As Barbera is quoted in the booklet to the recent set, "All you needed was a cat and a mouse, and everyone knew what was going to happen." We sure did. So with that as a background, let's start our look at the series with this episode concentrating on Disc 1. Puss Gets the Boot was released on February 10th, 1940. Jasper the cat torments a mouse in the house. When the cat breaks a vase, the woman of the house, I'm going to call her Dinah going forward, but we also know her as Mammy Two Shoes. We'll talk about that towards the end. Dinah warns him that if he breaks one more thing, he'll be thrown out. The clever mouse, at this point known as Jinx, but we know him later as Jerry, we'll deal with that later too. The mouse exploits this situation to get the cat into trouble by making it appear that Jasper is breaking things. Now, on the surface, there's nothing revolutionary here, but the template was being laid not only for future Tom and Jerry's, but a lot of jokes ended up in some Looney Tunes as well. You know Frizz. The restoration looks better than the one from the Academy Awards set. A properly done blue upgrade should. I think this is the same as the Golden Collections one. Now we get 2 ported over commentaries. The mustachioed one, Mark Hausler, gives us a rundown of the different animators who worked on different parts of the cartoon. In the other one, the late Earl Kress and Mad TV's Nicole Parker give their own observations. So the series got off to a running start. Well, not quite. Producer Fred Quimby, with the artistic foresight Ed Seltzer would later emulate, demanded the duo not work on any more cat and mouse cartoons, not seeing any future in them. Bill and Joe, loyal employees that they were, began to think about doing another one. Then they got some backup from a theater owner in Texas who wanted to know when he'd be getting more tunes with the cat and the mouse. This made Quimby reconsider his dictum and now insisted the duo put out more of the new series, which they were already doing.
The Oscar nomination probably helped Fred's decision as well.